All right, this is great. This is like old home week for me. A room full of attentive real estate professionals and members of the press who think real estate is diabolical. So welcome. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Thank you for joining us at Grand Central Madison. I'm Jano Lieber, MTA Chair and CEO. We've had the terminal open for a little more than a year, and customers are loving it. 65,000 weekday users and growing. That is incredible. I think it is next to little old Grand Central Terminal upstairs in Penn, the busiest commuter railroad station in the United States. I'm checking that, Evan. Don't hold me to it. But an amazing, amazing year for this new project. But there is still one unrealized component of the Grand Central Madison experience that we are all looking forward to, and that is the retail that's going to bring it to the next level. It's time for the MTA, together with the private sector, to begin addressing that. So I am thrilled to announce that the MTA is releasing an RFP to find a master lessee to develop and manage retail on the concourse. Details are available on the MTA website on our real estate department page. That's Florio's World. And prospective proposers just need to register or sign in to get access. So go to the MTA website, the real estate department page. Listen, this is an amazing opportunity for the right operator. Grand Central Madison ridership, as I said, if on its own, represents something like the 5th largest commuter rail operation in the United States, just after Metro North upstairs, Penn, Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, and I think one other. So it has also, and Fred Cerullo will talk more about this, it's unlocked Midtown East Midtown for 17 million riders in the first year alone. And in so doing, has added tremendous convenience for commuters headed to East Midtown who no longer have to do the trek back and forth to Penn from this neighborhood. And we really want to increase the convenience and the excitement of this facility with innovative shops, restaurants, and brands, like we've been pretty successful with upstairs. Grand Central State Terminal, old Grand Central, is in many ways the model. Now, we may not be the Oculus, because you cannot necessarily, we have not organized around providing our commuters the opportunity to buy a $10,000 watch on their way to and from getting their salad. But what you see upstairs is the kind of dynamic mix. It's convenience, it's a little bit of fashion, it is some national brands mixed in with New York brands. I think that Grand Central Terminal is a great model for what we're hoping to accomplish down here. Now, this is the time to do it. New York's comeback is well underway, even post-pandemic. East Midtown is still the most dynamic, highest value-add business district in the world. So don't sleep on East Midtown, folks. It is still the #1 business district with the highest value jobs in the world. 200,000 employees working in a 70-block area that is home to almost 100 million square feet of commercial, residential, and retail space, 16 Fortune 500 companies, and now that GCM is open and successful, we need help turning it into the vibrant destination that it was always meant to be. You know, note to those who recall that when we were finishing up this new terminal, it was the height of COVID. I'm very proud of the fact that we figured out how to work safe and make good on the commitment we had made several years before that we were not going to push the schedule back. That was my contribution, said no more schedule slippage. We got it done, 2-week grace period. So we now, in the middle of that, we talked to the market about retail, and everybody said, understandably, we got to wait until COVID is over and see how the world recovers and see what the foot traffic is in this new terminal. And now you have that information. You have a dynamic East Midtown, and you have an amazing, busy Grand Central Madison facility. So this is the moment to go back out to the retail world and say, let's do business. So with that, I want to bring up the moderator for today's panel discussion on the big news, Heiken Santani, formerly of The Real Deal, but now on his own, ladies and gentlemen. He's for hire, available.
No, I've actually got my own company.
There you go. And his own real estate newsletter. And let me throw it to you.
Thank you, Jano. Are you joining us?
I am joining you, and I don't know. You're going to introduce the panel?
I've got it all.
You got it. Go.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. When I was coming here, I got turned around, so my walk went from 6 minutes to 10, and I'm very glad it did because I got to see what Jano said actually play out. New York is back, East Midtown is back, and it feels buzzy and vibrant, and it feels really good. So glad to be doing this with you all. Jano is the chair of the MTA, so it doesn't need much of an introduction. Right by him, we've got Andrew Goldberg, who's a vice chair at CBRE and one of the country's top retail brokers. Next to him, probably the perfect name for real estate, Rich Monopoly. And he is the senior vice president of development at Boston Properties, so he heads up New York development for them. And to his left is Fred Cirillo. He heads up the Grand Central Partnership, so he's essentially the chair of the Business Improvement District here. I think let's start, Jano, keep it in the MTA universe for now. So as I said, there's been a lot of good tailwinds for what you guys are about to do here. And one major one that I think we should kick off with is congestion pricing and how that's going to turn this into maybe an even more of a destination.
How do we get from retail at Grand Central Madison immediately to congestion?
Well, that's where we're going. We have 25 minutes, so we got to go.
Listen, here's the bottom line. The Long Island Railroad is running more service than it ever has. When we opened this facility, we increased the number of trains by 40%. How many thousand trains is that a year, Rob? 107.
We ran 177,000 more trains.
We ran 177,000 more trains in 2023 than before. So there is a ton of Long Island Railroad service. It's more convenient. You have more choices, more options. And we didn't do it just because congestion pricing was coming. It was enacted into law by the state legislature back in 2019. But it is a huge boon for people from Long Island and Queens who want to take the little nudge that is congestion pricing and take advantage of faster and super convenient rail access to East Midtown.
Right. And Rich, I want to go to you. Just before we were talking, you were saying you see this as kind of a catalyst for all the other stuff you're doing around. So office development projects and leasing. Just talk about how something like this might play into your plans.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We are big believers and always have been in transit-oriented development. And I should say first, thank you to Jano for partnering with Boston Properties over the last 5, 7, 10 years and working through a very, very complicated site at the corner of 43rd and Madison, or 45th and Madison, excuse me. That site is ready for a 45-story, 950,000 square foot office tower. And just as evidence in our believers of TOD and placemaking, they go hand in hand. So in our own portfolio at the corner of 53rd and Lex, we have 4.5 million square feet. And amazing transportation location between east and west, north, south, 6 and the ENF and E&M coming together. We just put $200 million into the base of 601 Lexington to create a food hall. That coupled with the transit drives office leasing. It drives consumption of office space. So what we're seeing here completes that mix. This is a beautiful execution of transportation facilities, absolutely gorgeous. Couple that with the retail that's coming, that drives office consumption. So yeah, we're pretty excited about what they're doing here.
And so in conversations you're having with potential office tenants, this will be how do you talk about it? How would you talk about something like this?
It's all part of the marketing story. It's part of the marketing materials. We'll describe exactly what's going on down here and how that single seat commute is enhanced by the experience getting to your desk. Right. You have to describe the entire soup to nuts experience, but with the completion of the retail, you've brought the whole story together.
Fred, I'll take your thoughts on that too. I think you're in the right spot for that.
Sure. I mean, look, it's put a perspective on this neighborhood and how important retail is in the Grand Central neighborhood. This district represents about 70 million square feet of real estate. We have 280 block faces that make up the Grand Central District. There are close to 1,000 retail locations. The commitment of retail to this neighborhood, we've seen a huge change over the last 2 years. There were 200 new retailers that have opened in this district in the past 2 years alone, which sends a very strong message to how retailers are looking at the business opportunities here. The pedestrian activity, I think that was mentioned earlier. We ended last year and we began this year at over 80% of 2019 numbers in terms of pedestrians accessing this neighborhood. We've seen an interesting trend also that some of our neighborhood has seen actually over 100% of 2019 numbers on the weekends. So the neighborhood is changing. People are experiencing Midtown East differently. I personally think some of that is driven by access to Long Islanders. Jano referenced me when he was talking about the impact the Long Island Railroad has had, the access to it here. We like to say at the Grand Central Partnership, access to everything is everything. And there's no greater example than what Grand Central Madison has done. Since before the Long Island Railroad opened here, we have seen a 115% increase in people with Long Island zip codes in the district during the week, which is an incredible number. We've seen just a 35% increase from last year when it opened to this year.
Fred,
so
I'm
it's
sorry, I'm gonna
transformative.
jump in on this.
Yeah.
Wanted to get your thoughts on the mix of tenants. So is it still sort of daytime retail, or are you seeing a broader F&B component in the mix now?
I'm glad you asked me that. The majority of the new businesses are food and beverage, which we actually love because they're destination-driven businesses. And they've modified. I don't have to tell this group. You know, happy hour is now 3:30 and 4 o'clock and 4:30. You know, some of us, that was our schedule for happy hour anyway, but it's now a trend. It is food and beverage driving a lot of the new businesses here, but also service-oriented businesses, personal service, salons, and other personal service business, which again is really important because you can't call that in. You have to be in the neighborhood and you have to experience it in person. So that activity, these are all destination-driven businesses, which is fantastic for the neighborhood.
Right. And Andrew, let's get your thoughts on this kind of. I was chatting with Jeff Sutton last week, sort of New York retail titan, and he and his broker had a pretty interesting theory on a luxury tenants retail mix, right? Or a tenants retail mix. You've got your Fifth Avenue flagship, you've got your experimental retail, maybe Soho and meatpacking. Where does transit-oriented retail fall into the master plan for tenant?
I think a little bit of all of the above. You have certain retailers that want to be in a transit hub, right? And there are certain names, certain F&B people that know how to operate down here and want to get that traffic in these condensed periods of time. Then you have others, like we've seen the success of the leasing up at Grand Central, where we've brought in some big names like Lululemon, who would be in all of those other markets. But there's still people that are going to and from a destination in the train. There's also all of the office workers that sit upstairs that need to be able to grab stuff. And Grand Central has always been sort of the center of the hub. So we're seeing a mix of all of it. They might alter the concept. They might show a smaller, more curated offering. But we've seen all types of trying to come in.
And is it catered to New Yorkers then, or is it because Fifth Avenue has to think about the world as well? I wonder what you're seeing just from your experience here.
It's mostly it's mostly commuters that work here, with a lot of tourists, because you do have Grand Central. You know, at any given time, you'll go down there and you'll see people with cameras standing there. And I'm gonna.
Still, I just on the point that Andrew's making about tourists, so what we're seeing is a dramatic surge of people using this facility to go to JFK, because this is a very different experience than Penn. This is New Yorkers here who get it. This is a much easier place for a tourist with luggage to move through and feel comfortable in than Penn, which tends to get a little buzzy, right? So, so what we're seeing is the tourists are digging the idea of you get on the train here, you get out of Jamaica, you get on that air train, and you're in the terminal in 40 minutes. Pretty good.
That makes sense. So you've got your massive shopping list right at the end of your trip, and this is where you might execute on it. One more question for you, a little more wonky, but we have a real estate crowd, so it's okay. Just on, there was a lot of talk from the pandemic on about maybe structuring leases a little bit differently, where the landlord might share on the upside, but also have the tenant has a little bit of downside protection. So income sharing agreements, revenue sharing agreements. How prevalent is that stuff now, and where do you think that might fit into the mix? I know it's very early here, but just in general, how much of that is playing out in retail?
Well, we've been seeing that in a lot of the enclosed shopping centers forever now, where you create an enclosed environment and the landlord wants to participate in the upside of what they create. So the sharing of revenue over a certain level has been pretty common. During COVID, we saw more flexibility on the street stores and coming up with structures that would work. But we're pretty much back to a regular standard deal structure. Downstairs here, these are smaller stores. They might have shorter terms than others, but there's still some upside, and I think that that'll be achieved where landlord will be able to share in that upside over time.
Right, and let's get the landlord's take on that too. Just in terms of how open are you to a deal structure of that sort? I'm a new startup. I have a anthropology type, but at bargain basement prices, and I want to try something new. How can I talk to you?
You know, generally speaking, we've kind of returned to the base and percentage. We had, just to be very clear, we were very flexible with our ground plane retailers during the pandemic. We wanted them to survive. We wanted them to thrive. Again, going back to my earlier point, placemaking for us drives office leasing. So we need them to survive. We need them to thrive. So we did create some flexible terms for a certain duration as we move back to normal. And I would also point out, you know, we have 55 million square feet coast to coast in all the major markets. This location, Park Avenue, the Plaza District, has the best return to work foot traffic of all of our markets. It's fantastic. So it is a buzz, but that allows the retailers to adjust and move back toward a normal kind of financial
What are
structure.
you measuring that, by the way, with Castle, the swiping, or how are you kind of gauging the return to office?
We have our own kind of turnstile data, et cetera, and I understand the Castle systems. Yep. We're very aware of Castle systems. We don't use Castle systems, so but it's our own turnstile swipe data. But even, you know, ancillary to that, you could see it in the cell phone ping data. The foot traffic around, you know, Grand Central and Park Avenue is fantastic.
Jano, you knew this one was coming. This doesn't work without the perception of safety, without feeling like this is a place where someone can transact, no one's going to harass them, no one's going to bother them. I know you're in the middle of litigation at Fulton Center, so I won't ask you specifically about that, but what was interesting is those reasons were brought up: crime, homelessness, etc. Now, there's more of a story there. We're not going to get into that specifically, but I want to know how you're thinking about creating the right environment to do what we're talking about here.
I think folks who have used this facility know that this is incredibly well policed and orderly. There's a police desk at several different locations along this concourse. There's never a shortage of MTA police on this concourse, and there are also similar police facilities downstairs. And it's being operated in tandem with the first-class terminal operation upstairs. So Grand Central, I think that the world experiences Grand Central as among the safest places to be in transit, in New York certainly. And this facility has been, I mean, virtually perfect from day one. And it doesn't, I mean, truthfully, part of both the configuration and the fact that we control access to it to an enormous degree has been a great advantage in terms of operating it in a way that not only is safe statistically, it's super safe statistically, but also feels really safe.
Statistically?
I don't, but literally, I think there have been diminished. Paul, I'm looking at you. I think we have almost zero index crimes that have taken place in this facility, and it really feels safe. I mean, the word is out that this is a really comfortable place to move through, and it's got the best public bathrooms in New York, which says something about the level of safety.
That's huge. Fred, I'm going to go to you for that, and then I'm going to open it
Sure.
up to the audience for questions.
So I agree completely with how Jano described both the sense and the perception and the reality of what's happening here at Grand Central. I could tell you just, this is a place that feeds people and welcomes people out into the neighborhood. The district is represented by 3 different police precincts, Midtown North, South, and the 17th. This is truly the safest commercial business district you're going to find. Of the 3 precincts and total crime across all 3 precincts, this neighborhood represents in the bid district less than 10%. And we're seeing really the spike, believe it or not, is grand larceny auto is driving the numbers. Hard to imagine that would be the thing that drives numbers in this district. But you also, people doing business in this neighborhood and the people who are coming, whether living, working, and visiting here, they have an organization like ours that working daily with both the MTA police and the local police precincts. And we have 7-day-a-week public safety field operation services and sanitation. So we're keeping the neighborhood clean. We're patrolling the streets every single day of the week for 15 to 18 hours a day. So that helps not only in the perception, but certainly in the reality. And if you really take a moment to think about it, the quality of life issues in this neighborhood are not the same. It's not to say we don't have them. This is a sort of global issue we're all dealing with. But if you think of this neighborhood and you compare it to others around the city, and we have a rule not to diss any other neighborhood, but the fact is that those conditions are not the same in this community as they may be in others. And
Right.
so we're very fortunate that way. And a business owner can trust that when they come and do business here.
I think that's a good point because we were, I was speaking with Rich about the office and the return to office. Manhattan-wide, office availability is at 18%, but I think it's a lot less here. Rents are struggling in so many other submarkets, but you've got One Vandy here and many other buildings that are doing quite well. I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. Just 2 requests. Please make it a question and just 1, and we'll move around with a mic. Thank you. Who's got a question? For this, it's on topic, yeah.
Hello, John with Channel 2 CBS. I just recently moved back to Long Island after being born and raised, so I love this place. It's great. But my question to you guys is just if a mom and pop shop wants to open up here too, it looks like you're looking for this major person. Talk about something like that. Could they come here? Why it would be great for a small business to open here as well?
That one. We are looking for local businesses, and if you go around and walk through what Grand Central currently is, you'll see that it's a mix. And we love mom and pops or local businesses that can do something that's very New York centric. And the stores are physically small enough where you can come in here and it's not as much to do as a store here as it would be elsewhere. So yeah, we're not against that in any capacity. We're actually looking for it.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll wrap it up then. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for coming. Thank you.
7, you have a question? Okay, we're going to get you a mic, Anthony. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Jano. So just actually to follow up on the presentation today, talk a little bit about, how much retail really makes a difference in a space like this, because I think there's so many people that you look at them on their daily commute, they seem to be in and out, and people use retail space, but what kind of a difference maker is it, and sort of how committed are you to making it excellent here?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think what retail does is a couple different things. One, it adds to convenience. If you can pick up, like in Grand Central, the Grand Central Market, you can pick up dinner on your way home. You can get, new eyeglass frames. I mean, basic stuff. There's a Walgreens or a Duane Reade up there where you can deal. So convenience. It also creates a sense of place. You have a mix of people, but also of different kinds of economic activity. And it creates a sense of dynamism to the place. So for all those reasons, it's really great to have these iconic places, not just be, transit stations where people run in and out, but where there is retail that makes it more interesting and more attractive. The other variable is you want to make the retail more connected. You want to make this place more connected to the neighborhood. There's a huge population of office workers around here. We want to make this place useful to them. So just like upstairs at Grand Central, there will be people who don't necessarily ride Metro North or the subway, but who come in to get lunch, who come in to buy gifts. So that is all part of the strategy here, to serve the commuting population, to serve the adjacent office workers, and to create a great sense of place and dynamism in this new, incredible part of New York.
All right, over to Michelle Kasky right here, Bloomberg News. Do you have a question, Michelle? Michelle passes. Evan Simcoe Bednarski, the New York Daily News, does have a question. Evan.
Microphones everywhere. Hey, Jenna, how are you?
Hi.
So you made an observation at the beginning of this that this is not going to be the kind of place like the Oculus where you can get a $10,000 watch. From the $100 watch community, thank you. But can you talk a bit about what
$50?
Can you talk a bit about what is there another place in the city that sort of mimics what you'd like to see here? How do you reach that mix of, because it's a different mix of people, right?
Yeah.
The commuters coming in on the LIRR, office workers coming downstairs. Help me paint a picture for my readers as to what you hope this will look like.
I think it extends the mix that we have in Grand Central upstairs. I think you've got something that is a big iconic retailer, Apple, but you've also got basic everyday stuff. You can buy a great bagel at Zaro's. You can, as I said, deal with you get new eyeglass frames. You can go to a Lululemon, but you can also just deal with the basic stuff that you might in a drugstore like a Walgreens or a Duane Reade or one of those. So I think that what we're looking for is a mix that's very similar to Grand Central. Now, what we didn't talk about today is that we've already taken a major step by having an iconic, very New Yorky anchor tenant in the form of Trax. Trax was, the beloved place to raise a glass and throw down a dozen oysters while you were meeting someone before a Long Island Railroad train, right? Or in Rob Free's case, in the afternoon before all of rush hour. But that's just a dig on Rob. Trax is got this incredible brand relationship to the Long Island Railroad commuting community, and they're coming to this facility. They are our first tenant, and they're building out a bar restaurant right over here at the center of this concourse. So that's proof of what we're trying to do, try to place that people want to come for a drink and hang out, something that's convenient, something that matches up with their commute, have a drink with a friend at the end of the day, maybe even get a little business done. It's a familiar brand, but it's also creating a sense of place and hopefully drawing office workers downstairs. Does that do it? Respond to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And just very quick, my standard question on these sorts of things. What's the timeline on this? When are you hoping to have an answer to the RFP?
David Florio,
David Florio.
the Director of Real Estate.
David Florio, Director of Real Estate for the MTA.
So the RFP is on the street as of today. You can go on the website. Proposals are due, I believe, in June, and we're hoping to make a selection by the fall. And between lease negotiation, plan review, and so forth, we're hoping to have, obviously, some stores slowly ramp up during the course of 2025. Probably by 26, you may see a full complement of stores, in addition to tracks.
All right. For those of you
Tracks
who are
is
here,
by the
there's
end of the year.
I'm sorry. For those of you who are here, the QR code is a direct link to the RFP. All right. Nothing from Jose. You're good? Great. From the back, that's New York 1, is that right? With a question, we're on topic? Amazing.
Can you just just describe what exactly you're asking for with this retail space, if it's an anchor retailer or a company kind of like Westfield to manage all of Grand Central Madison?
It's an overall manager, developer, operator, a master lessor of all the space, and except for the bar restaurant, which is going to be Tracks, and we've already made that deal, but everything else is included in this master lease that's being put out for bid.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jano.
bet.
Thank you.